Good evening and welcome to the rest of the news. Our special guest today is Michael Connolly, who's talking to us from Texas, and Ed Holloway, a former state representative, who is going to help us discuss some of these issues. So Mr. Connolly is an attorney and is in with the Justice Foundation. And so could you tell us a little bit about your work, Mr. Connolly?
Well, the United States Justice Foundation has been around 37 years. I was one of the founders of it, and I was a consultant for the foundation for years. And then about 3 years ago, the executive director, Gary Creep, was elected judge in San Diego, California. And they asked me if I would take over as executive director. And I told them I would do that on one condition. I live in Texas, and I'm not moving to the People's Republic of California. So even though our main office is in California, I'm operating out of Texas. But our specialty is constitutional law, educating people about the Constitution, and handling litigation. And we have cases going all over the country. We're heavily involved right now in the case in front of the Supreme Court involving gay marriage. We were involved in the case in Texas here that ruled the immigration action by Obama as unconstitutional. We're involved heavily in working with veterans cases, and we're also working on the situation with who is Obama? I mean, who is this man that is the President of the United States? And that's a key question that we've been working on for a number of years now.
Well, I know the birth certificate has been a mystery. Could you explain that a little bit?
Well, we worked with Sheriff Joe out in Arizona and Mike Zillow, who was his chief investigative officer. And I was with Mike one time when he presented the birth certificate that Obama has said is the original birth certificate. And he pointed out all the discrepancies in it. To begin with, it lists him as an African American, and back in those days, that was not the way they were listed. The term didn't really exist. The date is questionable. The hospital name is questionable. There are a number of questions about the birth certificate that indicate to us that what has been presented to the American people by Obama is in fact a forgery. And then when you go look at the rest of the records out there, or lack thereof, this man has never been vetted like all other presidential candidates about his college records. We don't know which colleges he actually went to. We do know for a fact that when he applied for financial aid, he listed himself as a foreign student, not a U.S. citizen, as a foreign student. We do know that he traveled to Pakistan using an Indonesian passport. So our view is at this point that this man who is President of the United States is not an American citizen. He's never been an American citizen, even if he was born in Hawaii, which we doubt. We think he was born in Kenya. But if he was born in Hawaii to a woman who was an American citizen, if he then went to Indonesia, which he did and had adopted a new name and got an Indonesian passport, he was declaring himself a citizen of Indonesia. Now, you can have dual citizenship in this country, but you can't be President of the United States if you have it. That's why Ted Cruz here in Texas, who had dual citizenship with Canada and the United States, has renounced his Canadian citizenship. Obama, there's no indication Obama has ever renounced his Indonesian citizenship. There's also an indication that he may have been a citizen of Kenya at one point. So all of this has been hidden from the American people, and we don't know who this man is. We don't know what religion he is. He professes to be a Christian, yet he seems to hold the Muslim religion in much higher regard than the Christian religion. He won't come out and say that these are radical jihadists, Islamic jihadists that are attacking us around the world, that make up ISIS, make up Al-Qaeda. He won't say that. You know, here in Texas, we're still quite upset about the fact that Obama has never referred to the attack by Major Hassan on the 13 soldiers at Fort Hood. He still calls that workplace violence. He won't call it a terrorist attack.
Well, one of the things that I've read of several reports and interviews with students in Indonesia that went to school with him. And according to them, he was on a fast track by the educators in Islam that sooner or later he would be an imam and very much a strong leader of the Islamic religion. And that all was buried, all of those interviews, all of the students that served with him in that Islamic school have not been, the media's been, I don't know what the proper terms to call it. They've been buried, everything related to him. He's the savior and all of these wonderful things, and at the same time, everything he has done and everything that they've been connected with is in the opposite direction, detrimental to the United States.
Exactly. No question he was raised a Muslim. And whether or not he is still a Muslim doesn't really matter because he obviously sides with the Muslims. And he said in his book that he wrote before he was ran for president that if the winds turned against the Muslim religion, he would side with the Muslim.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a quote in his very book. And, you know, the man, I've written a number of articles about this for my blog. I have a blog at michaelconnolly.jigsy.com, and I write about this and a number of constitutional issues, and all of these are posted at usjf.net, which is our United States Justice Foundation situation, or our website. And one of the most recent articles I wrote about Obama's BFFs. Who is he seen to be siding with around the world? Well, he's obviously hooked up with Fidel Castro and his brother. He's pro-Cuban. He works with, very seldom says anything derogatory about the Chinese. He works with them, but primarily he's involved in the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, who is the Muslim Brotherhood? So the Muslim Brotherhood is an organization, and if you read their tenets, if you read what they have to say, their goal is to eventually destroy all of the Western democracies and turn all of us into Islamic states under Sharia law. People in the Muslim Brotherhood not only meet regularly in the White House with Obama, but they are on they've appointed some of them to work in Homeland Security Department. They're presidential appointments. They actually work for Homeland Security. We had one here recently in Texas who was on Homeland Security who resigned because he just flat out came out and said that the United States should be turned into Sharia law, under Sharia law. And of course, the state of Texas has recently passed through its legislature something preventing that law from even being considered in our courts. And of course, all the Obama administration, as they did in Oklahoma, will be challenging that legally. So when you look at the evidence and you look at what's happening around the country, around the world, well, take ISIS. Let me give you this. This is one that rankles with me because I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I currently have 2 sons in the Army, and one of them has been on 8 combat tours now overseas. And we have ISIS out there. And ISIS is advancing. They're slaughtering Christians. Obama doesn't seem to care a thing about that. I don't think he's ever mentioned Christians specifically being slaughtered. ISIS is advancing, and we are supposedly fighting them. Now, as an ex-military officer, I can tell you that when you're using air power to try to stop an enemy, you fly a minimum of 200 sorties a day. We are averaging about 5 a day against ISIS. And pilots are reporting that about 3 out of 5 sorties, they never drop their bombs. They never get permission to drop their bombs. They never get permission to fire their rockets. They never get permission to attack, even if they see the enemy out in the open, because that permission has to come through the White House. So here we have a man in the White House who's never been in the military, who's shown his utter disdain for the military, who is limiting our military to the point where we're totally ineffective against an enemy that's about to destroy us.
Well, we've reached the point in our military, we're back at the level before World War I. And in terms of the Navy and other things, and there's no funding going to the military, and you're exactly right. And it could start with the fact that the closest advisor to him, Valerie Jarrett, calls herself an Iranian American. She grew up in there, and she's been doing back channels to the Ayatollah and others in Iraq, in Iran, and it goes on and on and on. But you can start with the speech that he made in Cairo to the university, his attitude of Islam. And you're right about the Brotherhood and everything else that's connected with it. And it's a serious problem. And he's abdicated everything to the United Nations to do the selecting and screening of all of these immigrants that are coming in here. And we've had our experiences in Kentucky with several of them. And it's a growing problem, and nobody addresses the issue, and it's something that's critical to the survival of America.
Absolutely. He's bringing in millions of Muslim immigrants, and they're coming from Syria, they're coming from Yemen, they're coming from Somalia, they're coming from places where they breed terrorists. They're not being vetted. He's allowing them to be flown in illegally and basically dumped in our cities. They're flown in legally. Now, here in Texas, of course, we have the border situation. We have a wide open southern border. And I recently was making a speech over in Tyler, Texas, and one of the heads of the Texas militia came up to me. And this particular group assists the Border Patrol and local law enforcement along the border with Mexico. They don't carry weapons. They go down there basically as spotters to look for illegals. And he said that 2 years ago when he was down there, they were catching a number of people coming in from countries like Somalia, Yemen, and Iran, and Iraq and Syria, who were coming across the border illegally. He said they estimated they were catching about 1 out of every 10. He says now with a wide open border and Obama allowing everybody to cross that border, he estimates that they're not catching maybe 1 out of every 100. So we potentially have hundreds of potential terrorists coming across our border. We know for a fact, I've gotten intelligence briefings on this, we know for a fact that ISIS is operating right across the Rio Grande River from El Paso, Texas, and we think that they have cells, well, we know they have cells operating here in Texas and probably around in other parts of the country too. And this is all the policy of Obama to allow this to happen.
And they're in every state of the United States except Wyoming, and I don't know why they've not put any Muslims in Wyoming, but I've got a good idea that the West is still alive in certain areas. And one of the cities in Texas has fought back against some of these immigrants that are being forced on them, and that was in Abilene. And but it's an increasing thing, and there's no screening taking place, and we've had them, and it's increasing. And I don't know at this point, because it's coming at us in so many different areas. The millions of those, we have a case in Kentucky where a professor who is an Islam, teaches Islam, has said that make no doubts in your mind that we will never assimilate into America. We do not believe in any of the issues and constitutional questions that you survive on, and we will only operate under Sharia law. So it's an increasing problem, and the public is just not aware. And it's information like you're providing, and because what Dr. Simon does, that people are becoming aware, and it needs to increase tenfold.
Well, I live 60 miles away from Garland, Texas, where the terrorist attack took place recently. Unfortunately, it was stopped by local law enforcement because the FBI claimed that they had been monitoring these guys and knew that they were heading to Garland, Texas to attack this event, and yet they notified local law enforcement. Local law enforcement in Garland says they never heard from the FBI. But here we have an actual terrorist attack that took place in our country by people who are supporters of ISIS, and it's just going to keep getting worse. It's going to keep happening because we are not securing our borders and we're not defending ourselves. And you know, the idea that you can't profile people. Well, let's face it, all these attacks are being happening with people who are either Muslim or Muslim converts, and no, that's just a fact we have to deal with. So, you know, here in Texas, we're trying to deal with it, but like you say, in places like Abilene, they're trying to fight the immigration. But San Antonio, for example, we have all these children, these so-called children who come across the border, 7, 8 years old, supposedly make the trek thousands of miles across Mexico on their own and get to the border. Well, we know they're being brought in by people, by Americans who are working down there. They're putting them on buses and they're bringing them to the border. And they and their mothers, in some cases when they have them, are being housed in facilities like in San Antonio, Lackland Air Force Base. They're being put in facilities down there. There's an ICE building that's been converted to basically luxury apartments. They get free food, free medical care, free education, free housing. They got laptop TV, laptop computers. They got big screen TVs. They're being given all the things that they need. Excuse me. And yet we have hundreds of homeless veterans in the San Antonio area that live on the streets. Why aren't they being housed at Lackland Air Force Base? Why are we accommodating the people who are coming into this country illegally and breaking our laws? And why are we bringing in all of the Muslims from around the world? Our population right now, our Muslim population has probably increased tenfold since Obama has been in office. And it's going to keep getting worse. And we see what's going to happen. We're going to have more situations like in Garland, and American citizens are going to be killed.
Well, our last program was about these rape gangs in Europe, in England, and Sweden, and Norway, and how the police and the judges won't even prosecute the Muslims. It's just they blame the children that are being attacked. And so it seems to me that Obama is trying to get more and more Muslims in here, so we're going to end up just like Europe.
And I talked to a person from Canada that said the influx of Muslims into Canada has increased tenfold. And it's increasing, and they're bringing in thousands there. And that's another thing, that's another border that people don't realize is being penetrated. Minnesota and places like that are loaded with thousands and thousands of Muslims, and they're becoming the Shiite law in some communities, and law enforcement's afraid to go in, even here in the United States. It's not only in Europe, but it's happening here. But there's no notice by the media or anybody else of any of this stuff is happening.
Well, all of these problems that all point to Obama, and to me, like Ed was just saying, nobody seems to know that all these things are going on. And that's why we're anxious to get you on our program and make DVDs. We've got 500 people in Kentucky that we're going to send these DVDs to. And in fact, if anybody wants a copy of these DVDs, they just call 893-2444, and we'll send them a free copy of the DVD just to try to get the word out on how urgent the situation is. And what do you think? We're trying to get everybody to call their congressman or write their congressman and ask them what are they going to do about all of this. It's that, like Ed was saying, they're trying to bury the whole problem as though it didn't exist.
And it goes back to 1980 when Jimmy Carter signed the law that was headed by Ted Kennedy and Joe Biden, and it's increased tenfold since then. And it's just been literally buried.
Well, here we have potential terrorists all over the country, potential terrorists coming in from other countries, and Obama's response to that has been to disarm the American people.
Yeah.
And one of the things we're working at the United States Justice Foundation right now, and this is critical for people to know about because most people don't know about it. I'm making speeches all over the country about this. I have my own talk radio show I do, and I mention it there, and I've doing other shows. Veterans are getting letters from the VA saying because of your physical or mental disabilities, we're going to declare you incompetent to handle your own financial affairs. Now, it used to be that these letters went out to veterans who were suffering from dementia and needed somebody to help pay their bills, and so your family member would be appointed. Now they're declaring veterans incompetent because they've lost an arm or a leg in combat, because they have minor PTSD, because they've ever been depressed over the loss of a buddy in combat. We have actual letters from VA telling veterans they're being declared incompetent because they let their spouses pay the family bills or because they have their bills automatically paid by a bank. We're representing one veteran in Texas, and I've actually got that in writing from the VA. Then the letter goes on to say once you've been declared incompetent, you can no longer own, possess, transport, or purchase firearms or ammunition. If you do, you're guilty of a felony. Then the veterans are being put on the NICS list, the National Institute Criminal Background Check list, run by the FBI. They're being classified as mentally ill to the point of being a danger to themselves or others. And that's why they're being put on the list. 99.9% of the veterans don't belong on that list. There's been no adjudication process. Most of them have never seen a psychiatrist or a psychologist. they haven't been adjudicated to be mentally ill at all, much less to the point of being a danger to themselves or others. Senator Charles Grassley of Iowa's Senate Judiciary Committee, we're working with them right now because they've determined that under the category on the NICS list of people who are mentally ill to the point of being a danger to themselves or others, 99.3% of them are veterans.
90 plus are veterans.
99.3% are veterans. And this is an incredible problem. And veterans are not even aware that this is happening to them. Some of them never get the letters. We're working with some veterans right now whose families have now been contacted and said, by the way, since you live with somebody who's incompetent, you can't own firearms either. And they're ordering these veterans to turn in their firearms. They're told that they can buy their Second Amendment rights back if they surrender their benefits. But they're told if they appeal this, and there really is no due process here, they're told if they appeal this, they will lose their benefits. Excuse me. So we're representing veterans all over the country on this and trying to do everything we can.
Wow, that's really something.
Yeah, I've been involved.
Well, if veterans have this happen to them, have them contact me directly. My email address, Michael, Michael, at USJFmail. That's the United States Justice Foundation, USJFmail.net. Because we're representing all these veterans for free. We're raising the money independently. We don't charge the veterans or their families a penny. We don't charge anybody we represent any time. So we raise our money independently. There's the veterans out there having this problem. They need to contact me so we can work with them.
That's USJF Mail.
That's Michael. Yeah, Michael at USJFmail.net.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, it's very important what you're doing, and then again, as a veteran myself and a member of the American Legion, I know the other groups are trying very hard to help out with some of that. But I was telling employers that if you hire a veteran, you're getting somebody that's crime-free, drug-free, physically fit, and a highly motivated individual. And the law enforcement agencies of America would be wise to look at some of these returning veterans and incorporate them into local police forces and everything else, because they understand, they've been there, they know that, and they're highly motivated individuals. And just to discard them as something that's been used and thrown away is one of the greatest disgraces I can think of in America today.
Right, and we're uncovering more things happening to veterans, not just losing their Second Amendment rights, they're losing their due process rights. Veterans are having their benefits stolen from them by fiduciaries appointed by the VA to represent them. You know, they're having trouble getting treatment at facilities. By the way, if veterans go to the VA for any reason whatsoever, medical or to talk about their benefits, one of the first things they're going to be asked about is, do you own a firearm? So they are being targeted specifically for disarming. And Adolf Hitler did it when he took over as Chancellor of Germany. One of the first things he did was disarm the German people, beginning with the veterans. Because there are 23 million of us out there, and we took that same oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And by the way, that's very similar to the oath that Obama and Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid took, but we believe in it, they don't.
Exactly. Right.
Well, it's very, very important, because I've watched and I've seen my experiences here with the VA and watching, and that's gotten to be with most veterans, that's an agency of last resort. And if those that are hospitalized in VA hospitals, ministers are not even allowed to come in and leave Bibles on them, and they've been forcing everything against Christianity from one end to the other, and that's another major problem. And we've got religious organizations throughout the United States that are spending or receiving millions of dollars to support this influx of Islamic refugees. And the screening is now being done by the UN, not the United States Homeland Security. And it just continues to problems. And it's one of the most frustrating things for people like you and me that have been there and understand what's going on. And the fact that 90% of the people have no clue at all. And that's something I feel a big responsibility that we have to do what you're doing and make sure we communicate as many people and our elected officials and keep on it until there's some results. And it can be done.
It can be.
I just wanted to mention once more that if we have these DVDs about these problems that we're talking about, and if you call right now at 893-2444, we'll send you a free DVD of what we've been talking about. It'll be free, and we'll get it right out to you. And if no one answers the phone, there'll be an answering machine, and you just leave your name, address, and phone number, and we'll send you a free DVD of all of this, these issues that we've been talking about.
And Michael, if you would send us, again, the information of all the things you're doing for veterans and others, I'll make sure that's disseminated. The United States Justice Foundation, in the battle you're holding in and bringing to the people through the court system, is extremely important, and more people need to know about it and the work you're doing, and to you can make a tax-free contribution to your organization and others that means so much in the end results that we can achieve.
Right, and the that address is Michael, Michael, at usjfmail.net. It's a great work there to help these veterans and defend them against these attacks by really the Obama administration.
And the lawsuits you're conducting against them on several different areas, including trying to find out the basic information and all that has been deleted or didn't exist to start with. And we applaud what you're doing and wish you Godspeed in the future.
Okay, Michael, we sure appreciate it. We're running out of time. Let me give you that phone number again, 893-2444. Call right now and we'll get you a free DVD of these issues, and the email address. Just go to USJF, U.S. Justice Foundation, usjf.net, and you can get more information and send a contribution. Okay, well, I can't get over how terrible the situations are, but God bless you, and we appreciate you being on the program, and we ask you to tune in again next week for the rest of the news.